In this lecture, we will see how to use multiple providers and resources in Terraform. Until now, we have been making use of a single provider called local to deploy a local file in the system. Terraform also supports the use of multiple providers within the same configuration. To illustrate this, let's make use of another provider called random. This provider allows us to create random resources such as a random ID, a random integer, a random password, etc. Let us see how to use this provider and create a resource called random pet. This resource type will generate a random pet name when applied. By making use of the documentation, we can add a resource block to the existing main.tf file like this. Here, we are making use of the resource type called random pet. In an earlier lecture, we saw that the resource type can be broken down to two parts. The keyword before the underscore is the provider, which in this case is random. The keyword following it is the resource type, which is the pet. Let's call this resource myPet. Within this resource block, we will use three arguments. One is the prefix that is to be added to the pet name. The second argument is the separator between the prefix and the pet name that is generated. The final argument is the length, which is the length of the pet name to be generated in words. Our main.tf file now has resource definition for two different providers. One resource of the local file type that we have already created earlier, and another resource of type random pet. Before we generate an execution plan and create these resources, we have to run the Terraform init command again. Now this is a mandatory step as the plugin for the random provider should be initialized in the configuration directory before we can make use of it. In the command output of the Terraform init, we can see that the local provider was previously installed and it will be reused. The plugin for the random provider, on the other hand, will be installed as it was not used before. We can now run the Terraform plan to review the execution plan. As expected, the local file resource called pet will not be updated, as it is unchanged from the previous apply. A new resource by the name of myPet will be created based on the new resource block that we just added. Now let's apply the configuration using Terraform apply. As expected, the local file resource is left as it is. But now a new resource has been created which is called myPet. Random provider is a logical provider and it displays the results of the pet name on the screen like this. Here, an attribute called ID, which contains the name of the pet, is returned by the apply command. Before we move on, please note that in our illustration, the dog icon stands for a pet, and we'll be making use of it throughout this course. The random pet can generate any pet name, and it does not have to be specifically a dog. And now, let's head over to the hands-on labs and explore working with multiple providers in Terraform.